Hare Krishna. So recently I was asked a question by Ashita Mataji on one of the verses from Bhagavad-gita. I wanted to record a response to that question because it's often asked question. So it's good that we discuss it in some detail. The verse is in 9th chapter, verse 32. I'll read the translation. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, vaisyas, merchants, and shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. So Ashita Mataji asked me regarding this verse. I want to understand why women are categorized as lower birth, even though women are the ones who give birth. I agree that we should see ourselves as a soul, not as man or woman, but I fail to understand the mention of women here. So, like I told Mataji on our WhatsApp group, that it's a good question because many times when we read these things from the Vedic scriptures, we are unable to understand why are women sometimes mentioned as less intelligent, or in this verse mentioned as lower. So let's unpack this a little bit. So obviously when we talk about lower, that is in comparison with something else which is higher. A hierarchy always exists in every society or organization. We see that commonly, like in a company, there will be the CEO, then the managers, then the other working people. So that's the hierarchy. And the people on top are given respect. It is assumed that they are more experienced, therefore they have that position, and accordingly they are given more regard than someone who is a regular joinee. Similarly, in the government, we see there's the Prime Minister, then the Cabinet, then the other IAS officers, and so on. So this kind of hierarchy always exists. And so it was also the case in the Vedic society. The difference is that when we talk about Vedic society, we are talking about an ideal society. Why? Because Vedic means one that is governed by the Vedas. And we understand that the scriptures or the Vedas are not ordinary texts. These are texts which are given by the Supreme Lord, either directly spoken by Him or through His inspiration. It is the devotees who have described these scriptures or written these scriptures. So either way, they are connected to the Supreme Lord, and therefore we accept that they are without mistakes. And in these scriptures, there is a hierarchy which is mentioned, which has the Brahmanas on top, then the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. And this hierarchy is not based on birth, as is sometimes understood in India, by the caste system. No, it is not according to that. It is by quality. And what is that quality? What places someone on top of the hierarchy in a Vedic system? It is according to their inclination towards gaining spiritual knowledge, or according to their detachment for the material world. So to understand the hierarchy and where someone stands on the hierarchy, it is important to understand the basis. That's why we are going into these details. And it is important to understand that this is different from the hierarchies that we are used to in the material world. That's why this doubt comes in our head, or this uncomfortable feeling when we hear of someone being lower on the hierarchy. Because in the material world, if somebody is lower, it essentially means they are less. it means it is likely that they will be mistreated or not given much importance. So in an ideal Vedic society, it is little different. Of course, respect is given to those who are higher on the hierarchy, but that doesn't mean that those who are lower will be mistreated. So it's not like that in an ideal Vedic society. So if we first understand that, we'll feel less bad if we are not right on top. So that is one thing to understand, that higher or lower, Srila Prabhupada mentions this in one of his interviews there was a lady journalist who was really asking him, do you think women are less, they are lower? So he said, well, we think that men and women are different, but by lower, it does not mean inferior. That's what Srila Prabhupada said. So this is what we feel, that in the material world, being lower means inferior will be, disregarded or neglected. So that's not the intention, firstly, in a Vedic system or in a perfect Vedic society. So this is the basis on which the classification is done, that if someone is likely to be more spiritually advanced, they will be higher on the hierarchy. For example, the Brahmanas, who are very much inclined to gaining Vedic knowledge, remaining in mode of goodness, so they are right on top. Whereas the Shudras or Vaisyas, who are more or less in the mode of ignorance, Vaishyas in mixed mode of ignorance and passion, so they are little lower on the hierarchy. That is according to in the hierarchy of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Now coming to the question of women. So it says women are also lower class. So lower compared to who? Compared to the men, right? And why is this a difference between men and women according to the Vedic society? Because again, what was our basis? That who is more inclined to gaining spiritual knowledge or moving on the path of spirituality, being more detached to the material circumstances. So it is seen in general that men are little more inclined towards spiritual life compared to women. Naturally, their nature is such that they are not that much attached to material things. Now, we may find it hard because our experience in the material world is that both men and women are attached. Like women are attached to clothes and they may be attached to family life. Similarly, men are attached to making money or getting gadgets, electronics. So we don't see that much difference. And one would think, I don't find that the men I see around are inclined towards spiritual life. So yeah, it is difficult to see it in the current world because we are in Kali Yuga. So there are very few men who are really striving for something higher. But still, we can still in this material circumstance also see that in a family, it's more likely that the women will want a greater variety of clothes, of things around the house, and whatever the material things are, they have they want more variety and they have more attachment for it. Generally, the men, if you are, say, shifting house, they will not want that every single thing is preserved and carried on to the next. They'll have some priorities. Okay, let's take the bigger things. Whereas the women will want all the little things that they have collected, they should be carried on to the next abode, whatever their next setup is. So we see that even in the current situation, even in modern life, there is this slight difference between men and women. So this is the reason that according to Vedic understanding, the women are sometimes classified as lower class. So we have to understand this is on basis of women being more attached and men being more detached about the material things and therefore likely to make spiritual progress. Okay, so this is one reason. But the thing to understand here is it does not mean that all women are like this and that all women are worse than all the men, right? Obviously, in this shloka also it is saying that women are equivalent to vaisyas and shudras, but those who are higher up in the hierarchy are the men who are more brahmanical, who have tendencies of kshatriya. That means more in the mood of protecting, about gaining knowledge, more leadership role. So men who are capable of guiding and protecting, they are given respect, right? So therefore this classification is given. So I hope the basis of the classification is clear. And the next thing we have to focus on is ourselves, that why is it that these things make us so uncomfortable? Of course, like we said, one of the reasons is just we don't want to be mistreated. If someone is telling us that we are lower, it means they are likely to be negligent towards us, not give us proper regard or respect, and we don't like that. So one is that we just don't want to be mistreated, which is a valid concern, and it is true that these things should not be taken out of context and used against women to kind of be disparaging towards them and not give any regard to their feelings or opinion. So that is not the intention here, and if somebody is utilizing it like that, so that's the wrong thing. But the other thing is, and this is interesting because I was discussing with my younger daughter that I want to talk about this verse about how women are lower class, and she told me, yes, actually that makes me also uncomfortable when I read such things. So I asked her why. So she said, because of pride. I don't want anybody to tell me that I'm lower. And that's also one very important point, that it is actually our own ego that doesn't allow us to look at things properly. We get so upset when we hear these statements that we don't look beyond this word, women are lower. We don't even see what this verse is all about. Actually, the verse is not about putting down a certain kind of people. It is not there to say that women are lower, shudras are bad, vaisyas are mode of ignorance people. No, that's not the intention of the verse. It is just mentioned in passing that the lower classes, women, vaisyas and shudras. The verse is actually saying a very beautiful thing. It is saying that anybody is eligible to make progress and attain love of Krishna. That is what Lord Krishna is saying, that they can attain Param Gatim. That all of these people who are also supposedly lower in the hierarchy, it doesn't matter. So it's a beautiful verse. It's so encouraging because it's clearly saying that no matter who you are or what your status is, higher, lower, it doesn't matter. If we are affectionate towards Krishna, then surely we will reach his abode at the end of this life. So it's such a nice, encouraging, positive thing, but because of our ego, we forget about the whole message and we just get stuck on that part, which is that women are lower class, they are less intelligent. Actually, if you're on the path of devotional life, it does not matter. It really doesn't matter whether you are less intelligent, less beautiful, not famous, not wealthy, because we understand that there is one person who is the most beautiful, the wealthiest, the most intelligent, the most renounced, and that's the person we want to serve. So it doesn't matter who I am or what I am, so long as I can serve this wonderful personality. So as we make progress in our spiritual life, these other things don't matter that much. It doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge it, because that is also important. We have to have dealings with other people, with other devotees, and therefore it is important to understand everybody's place in the hierarchy, because we have to give respect where it is due. We have to give affection to those who are lower on the hierarchy. We have to have friendly dealings with our peers. So it is important to understand the structure of a Vedic society, and in a devotee community, that's the kind of structure we should have. But everybody should be dealt with respect, and we should not be focusing on ourselves, that where am I and what am I getting, to the extent that, not to the extent that we allow ourselves to be mistreated, but we should not be hung up on getting respect for ourselves, or be very much bothered with these kind of designations of whether I'm higher or lower. A devotee is supposed to be very, very humble. So these things should not bother us. Of course, theoretically speaking, they should not bother us. They do bother us. But I think if we understand the context in which they are meant to be, the proper context, then I hope it will not bother us so much. Hare Krishna. So we can discuss this further if you have any questions. These are some thoughts I had on this verse. Thank you very much.